Hello everybody, Miss Roberts here for our final day of Mummies in the Morning. I've really enjoyed this book. It's just a little different than the last two. It's a little bit spookier, a little bit more mystery. So here we go with chapter 9. And remember now, we are trapped in the pyramid. The door is shut and it's dark and scary. And all of that after we just helped the mummy. You would think things would get brighter, but they haven't turned around yet. Here we go. Chapter 9. Follow the leader. It was pitch dark. What happened? Asked Annie. I don't know. Something weird, said Jack. We have to get out of here fast. Push against the door. Good idea, said Annie in a small voice. They felt their way through the darkness to the top of the stairs. Don't worry. Everything's going to be okay, said Jack. He was trying to stay calm. Of course, said Annie. They leaned against the wooden door and pushed. It wouldn't budge. They pushed harder. It was no use. Jack took a deep breath. It was getting harder to breathe and harder to stay calm. What can we do? Asked Annie. Just rest a minute, Jack said, panting. His heart was pounding, and he tried to see through the darkness. Maybe we should start down the hall, Annie said. Maybe we'll eventually come to an exit. Jack wasn't sure about that, but they had no choice. Okay, come on, he said. Feel the wall. Jack felt the stone wall as they climbed slowly down the stairs. Annie followed. Jack started down the dark hallway. It was impossible to see anything, but he kept going, taking one step at a time, moving his hand along the wall. Jack went around a corner, and then he went around another corner. He came to some stairs. He climbed up. Annie followed. There was a door. Jack pushed against it. Annie, too. This door wouldn't budge either. Or was it the same door? Jack and Annie stopped pushing. It was no use. They were trapped. Annie took Jack's hand in the dark. She squeezed it. They stood together at the top of the stairs, listening to the silence. Meow. Oh, man, Jack whispered. He's back, said Annie. Meow. Follow him, cried Jack. He's moving away from us. Jack and Annie started down the dark hallway, following the cat's meow. Hands against the wall, they stumbled through the darkness. Meow. Jack and Annie kept following the sound, all the way through the winding hallway. They went around one corner, then another, and another. Finally, they saw a light at the end of the tunnel. They pushed forward, out into the bright sunlight. Yay! Annie shouted. But Jack was thinking, Annie, he said, how did we get out of the false passage? The cat, said Annie. But how could the cat do that? Asked Jack. Magic, said Annie. Jack frowned. But look, said Annie. She pointed. The cat was bounding away over the sand. Thank you, said Annie. Thanks, Jack shouted at the cat. The cat's black tail waved. Then the cat disappeared into the shimmering waves of heat. Jack looked toward the palm tree. The Magic Treehouse sat like a bird's nest in the top of it. Time to go home, Jack said. Jack and Annie set off toward the palm tree. It was a long, hot walk. At last Annie grabbed the rope ladder. Grabbed the rope ladder. Jack followed. Once they were inside the treehouse, Jack reached for the book about Pennsylvania. Suddenly, he heard a rumbling sound. It was the same sound he heard in the pyramid. Look, Annie said, pointing out the window. Jack looked. A boat was beside the pyramid. It was gliding over the sand like a boat sailing over the sea. Then the boat faded away into the distance. Was it just a mirage? Or was that the ghost queen finally on her way to the next life? Home, Jack, whispered Annie. Jack opened the Pennsylvania book. He pointed to the picture of Frog Creek. I wish we could go home, he said. The wind began to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10. Another Clue. Late morning sunlight shone through the treehouse window. Shadows danced on the walls and ceiling. Jack took a deep breath. The treehouse was back in Frog Creek Woods. I wonder what Mom's making for lunch, said Annie. She was looking out the window. Jack smiled. Lunch, Mom, home. It all sounded so real, so calm, so safe. I hope it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, he said. Boy, this place is a mess, said Annie. We'd better make it neater in case Em comes back. Jack had almost forgotten about Em. Will we ever meet Em, Jack wondered. The person who seems to own all the books in the treehouse? Let's put the Egypt book on the bottom of the pile, said Annie. Good idea, said Jack. He needed a rest before he visited any more ancient tombs. Let's put the dinosaur book on top of the Egypt book, said Annie. Yeah, good, said Jack. We need a long rest before he Sorry. He needed a long rest before he visited another Tyrannosaurus Rex. The castle book can go on the very top of the pile, said Annie. Jack nodded and smiled. He liked thinking about the knight on the cover of the castle book. He felt as if the knight was his friend. Jack said, Annie, look. She was pointing at the wooden floor. What is it? He asked. You have to see for yourself. Jack walked to Annie and looked at the floor. He didn't see anything. Turn your head a little, said Annie. You have to catch the light just right. Jack tipped his head to one side. Something was shining on the floor. He tipped his head a bit more. It came into focus. It was the letter M. It shimmered in the sunlight. This absolutely proved the treehouse belonged to M. There was no doubt about it. Jack touched the M with his finger. His skin tingled. The leaves trembled, the wind picked up. Let's go home now, Jack said. Jack grabbed his backpack, then he and Annie climbed down from the ladder. As they stood on the ground below the treehouse, Jack heard a sound in the bushes. Who's there? He called. The woods grew still. I'm going to bring the medallion back soon, Jack said loudly, and the bookmark, too, both of them, tomorrow. Who are you talking to? Asked Annie. I feel like Em is nearby, whispered Jack. Annie's eyes grew wide. Should we look for Em? But just then their mother's voice came from the distance. Jack! Annie! Jack and Annie looked around the trees. Then they looked at each other. Tomorrow, they said. They took off, running out of the woods. They ran down their street. They ran across their yard. They ran into their house. They ran into their kitchen. And they ran into their mom. She was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The end. And that is the end of another wonderful book in the Magic Treehouse. Next week we will be starting Pirates Past Noon. It's a treasure trove of trouble. Jack and Annie are in for a high seas adventure when the Magic Treehouse whisks them back to the days of the deserted islands, secret maps, and ruthless pirates. Will they discover a buried treasure, or will they be forced to walk the plank? More on that next week. Can't wait to start another adventure with you. And thank you all for reading with me. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye!